I started doing these about 10 years ago, and I haven't done one since. But we used to say, PechaKucha. PechaKucha. Can you say that with me? PechaKucha. I won't even tell you what circadia means, because that was just there so I wouldn't have to explain what I was going to do tonight. So, Mike, you ready? All right, let's do this. So, just kidding. PechaKucha. They say that the first slide that you do is a throwaway. Nobody's really listening to you. But for tonight, I want you, when the slide comes over, to say PechaKucha, because PechaKucha is the sound of a Kodachrome carousel projector. Now, I'm not here to talk about myself in the PechaKucha. I'm here to talk about Anna. I've got a little laser here. Anna's my mom, and she's wearing her orange man hat, and I'm going to talk about Dutch cuisine tonight. Those two words have never been put together, ever. Dutch cuisine. Now, it's not really Dutch cuisine because my mom is Dutch, but she comes from Indonesia. Now, in Indonesia, what was called Batavia back then, every single culture just came mashed together, and it was like being American. It's really not. There's no Indonesian. There's just sort of an everything. So I'm going to teach you a recipe tonight. All right? This is where I learned the recipe. I learned the recipe in South Dakota. That's my mom. She's 8 years old. She's 5 years old in there. She's eating biscuit, which means biscuit. And in the Black Hills in South Dakota where I lived, my mom flew over and met all my friends and took them all from me. Everywhere she goes, she becomes popular because she cooks Dutch cuisine, and she cooks everything. Tonight I'm going to teach you how to make Stamppot. Stamppot sounds like PechaKucha because you stamp and you have a pot. Stamp plus plot, Stamppot. All right? Well, so my mom comes one day, and she's carrying this giant slab of something, and I'm thinking, bacon. No, it's not bacon. It is back fat. Back fat has no meat in it. It's what they make lard out of, and it's also what they render something called aspic out of. So my mom brings this stuff over, and the next day, she says, you can't believe what these people are throwing away. And she brings potatoes and carrots and curly kale and onions, and I'm thinking, this is really cool. And she says, you can't believe what these people are throwing away, and I get suspicious. I get suspicious because I want to know, where is she getting this stuff? She's going to the compost pile, and she's taking all the stuff that she can find out of there, and she's going to make her favorite recipe that she's going to teach me, Stamppot. Right? Potatoes, carrots, kale, onions, and you only need 2 tools. That's a potato masher. Forget that first one. A stamper, a stampercha, which is like a potato masher, except it's got a razor edge that she's filed all the way around it because she uses it for everything. And she can make julienne fries. She can, oh, this is the second thing. A pot, a Dutch oven, everything low and slow. Now, this is what she swears by, but in the course of life, and my life anyway, I've used every kind of pot imaginable. And I found out that it doesn't matter what kind of a pot you use, how fast you cook it, how slow you cook it, it's always going to taste terrible. So, I'm cooking it in a colander even one day, and I'm sitting there with my mom, and I'm peeling these potatoes, trying to get as much compost off of it as I possibly can. And my mom says, you know, I haven't made this since the concentration camp. I said, what? She goes, oh no, not the Japanese one. I was too young for those ones. This is the Dutch concentration camp. It took me about 2 years to get the story out of her. You see, my mom, when she was about 8, was in Indonesia, and they were moving people out after the war in something that they were calling decolonialization, or transmigratie, or repatriation. Basically, they were killing or kicking people out. And my mom ended up somewhere outside of Indonesia in a concentration camp that they called a repatriation camp. And the repatriation camp had only one purpose, to see how Dutch you were. Now, if you were blonde and Dutch looking, you went up to Europe. If you weren't, you were over here trying to prove how Dutch you are by eating Dutch food. Now, Dutch food came down from Malaysia on a boat, and it came in trucks. And this is the jungle, you have to remember. This is like unrefrigerated trucks. And my mom, at 8 years old, was in charge of cooking in the kitchen. And her job was, when the trucks arrived, to get all of the vegetables and rotted stuff out of there. Oh, did I mention there was a pig in there that was alive when they started? Her job was to strip the pig down and save anything that was still edible. That was the fat back. So this is my mom, and this is her family, and this is where they came from. And these are the reasons why she does what she does and why she cooks, because to her, cooking is love. Now, she was a slave, and she also ended up in an orphanage, and that's a whole other story. But at that orphanage, she was rescued by this woman over here, who's a Chinese Mandarin woman who had escaped slavery herself because she was in love with the man above her. Those are their green cards. And they rescued my mom from the orphanage and reunited her with her parents. This is Stamppot. Stamppot sounds and tastes like it looks. Well, actually, it looks a lot better. So I asked my mom once, how could you possibly like something considering where you ate it and how you ate it? And she said to me, you ate what the pot gaf, which means in Dutch, you eat what the pot gives. And because of what my mom went through and all of the people that her family and her family's family and all they experienced, if it wasn't for any of them and all that they did, that fat potato you saw in that picture and the fancy kale next to it, that little round carrot next to it, and the little onion, they wouldn't be here today. So, Stamppot.
Head Jauw, everybody. What a great job.